Mhm.
And to your point with how environment and genetics are linked, so there's the genetic issue of some people can't detoxify as effectively. But there's also a lot of diseases that we thought were pretty much a genetic sentence. We're now learning that I think the best phrase is by Dr. Sonia Mather, and she coined genetics loads the gun, environment pulls the trigger.
Today's episode, we have an environmental engineer with us. Her name is Emma Rohmann, and we are super, super excited because basically there are key beefs that people get wrong, and we are going to cover it. So part one is going to be talking about how to reduce your toxic load. But then part two, we're going to talk about hormone disruptors that can be like in your rooms, in your home. So before we dive deep, we want to formally introduce you here, Emma, and really we want to thank you for taking the time out of your day because I know it took something. And in fact, it took something for all three of us to be here. We're working moms and just busy. So thank you for being here, Emma.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for the conversation and grateful for a chance to talk to some grown-ups because the kids have been home all week. So
yeah, well, okay, we want to ask you about that, but let's just do a formal introduction because people need to know that you're an environmental engineer, mom of 2 young children, founder of Green at Home, where you help moms and moms-to-be to reduce toxins at home without overwhelm, a lifestyle overhaul, or spend money and time on stuff that doesn't work. And Emma is a David Suzuki Foundation Queen of Green coach, a guest lecturer at the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine, and holds a certificate in environmental health from the University of Arizona. And you can learn more about her at www.greenathome.ca. So again, tell us a little bit. You said you have young kids, right? So tell us what it took for you to get here on the show today.
Well, the kids have virtual school this week. When we're recording this, these schools in Ontario are shut down. And so they are on their classrooms. And luckily, I've got some parents nearby that can help out. And so it's a lot of navigating schedules and just trying to figure it all out.
Yeah. So the reason why I think it's so important to actually tell people this is we're all going through stuff, and it's just a matter of perseverance and just doing what it takes to show up. So I really want to acknowledge you as well as Dr. Tanya and myself for showing up, being here to deliver this amazing content today. So
Thank
hi,
you
Tanya.
for having me. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I think the biggest thing we need to do as parents is just lower our expectations. Just have none right now. Just as long as they are safe and healthy. Yes. Just to keep ourselves sane in our brains. So thank you so much for joining us, Emma. Really happy to have you here. I'm really super passionate about trying to lower our toxic load. And I think, today we're going to talk about how to reduce the toxic load and what are some of the reasons why it's important? Like, what are the impacts on health and well-being?
Actually, before that, though, can we talk about what the heck is a toxic load?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Let's dive back. Yeah. Dive deep. Go back. Yeah.
Yeah. That's where I like to start to make sure that everybody is on the same page. Because there are so many different misconceptions. And like you said off the top, I have a lot of beefs about how this topic gets talked about. So our toxic load is the total accumulation of toxins or toxics in our body. So I tend to use the word toxins as an umbrella term. I will flat out say that it is the wrong term if you want to be a stickler about words. Toxin technically means a natural substance that is toxic. Toxics or toxicants are synthetic or man-made substances that are toxic. So toxics is an awkward word to say and not many people use it. So I will say the word toxins, but know that I am encompassing natural and synthetic substances in that word. So our toxic load looks at the total accumulation of toxins. And that includes chemical, like physical substances that are toxins, but also stress. That's a form of toxin in the body. And sometimes it can include things like our natural hormones that aren't getting cleared out properly. So it's a big word that impacts our bodies, because when we are under toxic load effectively, or essentially our detoxification systems are overburdened. And it means that when our detoxification systems can't remove toxins effectively or efficiently, they build up. And if you think of your body like a barrel, there's a little spout at the bottom that can get rid of the toxins as your detoxification system is working. When it's not working fast enough for what's going in, it overflows. And that's where the toxins end up in your bloodstream and in organs where they do not belong. And this is where we start to see health effects down the line.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
it can be
do
quite
you think,
serious too. I think when, especially if you're genetically wired to have a poor detoxification system. What are some examples of in the literature that you've seen that kind of examples of illnesses? I guess you don't want to scare people, but I want to make them aware. What are some examples of some illnesses where there is that overburden because of poor detoxification systems?
And this is why I think the topic is so important, because the impacts are huge. Like, it affects everything from reproduction and fertility through to infant and childhood development, neurological function, asthma and allergies. It's implicated in PMS symptoms and hormonal imbalance, right through to neurological function as an adult, autoimmune disease, cancer. So it's not that any particular toxin or toxicant that gets overloaded is going to cause XYZ. It is such a multifaceted and complex issue, which is why I think it's taken so long to get more uptake than it deserves, because it is so complex. It's not a linear, you're exposed to A and you get Z 5 years down the line. It's not that simple, unfortunately. And to your point with how environment and genetics are linked. So there's the genetic issue of some people can't detoxify as effectively. But there's also a lot of diseases that we thought were pretty much a genetic sentence. We're now learning that I think the best phrase is by Dr. Sonia Mather, and she coined that genetics loads the gun, environment pulls the trigger. And so you can have bad genes, but if they're supported and they're you're not overburdened, and there's lots of things at play, then those bad genes don't necessarily get turned on. On the flip side, if you are in an environment that is not supportive, then that is when your bad genes, quote unquote, can cause issues. So there's definitely an interplay there between genetics and environment.
And that's the whole thing about epigenetics, right?
Yes.
So do you think, or can you speak to the signs of the times? 50 years ago, are we having more toxins now compared to back then?
I think overall, yes, it depends on a lot of things. So, our grandparents, there was a generation where it was okay to smoke and drink during pregnancy. And there was a lot of, DDT and different things being sprayed and used that we have learned over time isn't the best for health outcomes. However, despite having learned certain lessons, we are now at a stage where we are exposed to so many more different chemicals at any given time that I think our initial body burden when we are born is higher than it used to be.
No, I was just going to say then, can you actually name for us some of, when you say, gosh, it's everywhere. So what are they and where are they? Just even starting from your home.
Sure. So some examples that people have probably heard of already are things like BPA and phthalates, which are common ingredients used in various plastics. Phthalates are also used in personal care products, and these are both hormone disruptors. And they end up in so with BPA, it ends up in food or drink that's stored in containers that have BPA. And similarly with phthalates, they don't bind to the material that they're used in. And so if you've got a soft plastic that has phthalates in it, it easily migrates into the food. And research has shown that people who have a diet that consists of more packaged food have higher concentrations of these sorts of ingredients in their body. Our water is a big source of toxins as well that a lot of people don't necessarily think about. In North America, most of us have technically clean water in the sense that it's not going to give us a gastro issue. But because of all of the chemicals that have been used historically over time and currently, our water is contaminated with persistent environmental pollutants like PFAS chemicals. If you haven't seen the movie The Devil We Know or Dark Waters, Mark Ruffalo made like a Hollywood version of the documentary The Devil We Know. I encourage you to watch it. It talks about the Teflon story and how it ended up polluting the water for a community near a manufacturing plant. But research has shown that PFAS chemicals are in water all over the place because they are so ubiquitously used. They're used in firefighting foam, stain repellents, waterproofing sprays, and nonstick cookware. So those are some examples of what's in our water. And then even dust. Dust collects everything that kind of degrades out of all of the things in our home. So flame retardants and plastics and stuff that you put on your body even ends up shedding into dust. So we're exposed in a lot of different ways, which is very overwhelming. And it almost feels like people should just throw their hands up and forget about it because there's nothing you can do. But there are lots of things you can do.
So me being a neurotic cleaner, like a neurotic cleaner of my home and trying to like get all the dust out, maybe that's a good thing.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I was like, can I ask you about nutrition? What would be like the top 3 very impactful things that people listening could do to just kind of lower their environmental burden through diet? Like through what would food? You say? Like through food, the top 3.
Yeah. So eating, I mean, it's the same. I'm not a nutritionist, but the same advice that like you would give your patients about eating healthy food, whole foods, less packaged food, as I mentioned.
I love that.
Can go a long way. Eating organic has been shown to reduce your body burden, which is a concentration of particular chemicals in your body of pesticides. And so it's impossible to eat 100% organic diet in this day and age. So I tend to recommend eating organic where you can, particularly if you do eat meat, meat and high-fat dairy products, organic as much as possible. Also, there's an increasing importance to look at your grains as being organic. There's a practice that has been used for spraying pesticides on grains, particularly oats, right before harvest, which is increasing the amount of pesticide in the finished product. I think because this became more common knowledge recently, it's likely going to be shifting, but it is something to be aware of. And then your fruits and veggies, a lot of people look at the Environmental Working Group's Dirty Dozen as a way to prioritize which fruits and veggies you're going to eat organic. And I have a blog post that talks through what that dirty dozen list is. I think a lot of people put either a lot of weight on that list as being the kind of go-to gold standard, and then a lot of people totally debunk it and say it's useless. So I have a blog post that kind of balances out both of those views so that you can use it most effectively.
That's great. So we'll look for it. What's the title of that blog post? And then we can actually put it in our show notes.
Yeah, I'll send you the link. It's about using
awesome.
produce washes and the EWG Dirty Dozen list to reduce pesticides.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so we want to move on because there's stuff beyond food. And so check out episodes number 8, Eating for Vitality, and number 6 on mindful eating, because we do discuss this already. And what I want to ask though, too, we encourage people to do food prepping, but after the food prepping, what are we putting it in? Mm-hmm. Right? So, is
storage
it safe?
Containers, you mean?
Yeah, like in terms of storage containers, and we run out of things. Like a lot of people will have the plastic or Tupperwares, right? And I know it's better to do plastic or surgical grade steel, but I've been caught with sauces. There's just so much. Then I wait for it to cool, and I've been known to actually put it into freezer bags. Am I bad? Am I a horrible human being?
You're not bad or a horrible human being, no. Are there other options that might reduce the chance of chemicals leaching in? Yes. But you do what you got to do. I mean, I don't have a plastic-free house. I will say that. I'll be very upfront about that. I think there are ways that you can use plastic in a safer way, because there's a lot of messaging out there that says if you've got plastic containers, throw them out, get rid of them, and use something else. And that contributes to other issues environmentally.
Yes.
And it's also expensive, right? And so I don't subscribe to the all or nothing kind of approach. With plastic, would I prefer people use less single plastic? Absolutely. I freeze things in jars. I collect the larger kind of honey glass jars or pasta jars and use those to freeze because we have the space for it. If you have an apartment-sized freezer, that might not be practical. Stasher bags.
Actually, a great idea. Yeah. I was always worried that the glass containers might rupture in the freezer.
You just have to make sure that you leave enough space at the top.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? So thank you, Emma. Now I feel I am a good person because I do use the glass containers. But again, to be busy, it's I want to make a giant load of stuff and then just put it away, right?
Yeah.
So then I run out of containers. Totally. So that's when I resort to some of these plastic frozen, the freezer bags, right?
Yeah.
But I am using the glass jars. And
something so simple that I'm not doing. So thank you. I'm always trying to figure out ways to reduce my plastic load. So that is awesome. We're already at 18 minutes. We have so much to talk about. So let's wrap this episode up and carry on to the next one. So one of the things that we first of all, thank you for sharing all those awesome tips, and definitely we'll, add a link to your Instagram so that people can read up more on the pesticide guide or the Dirty Dozen. And I want to get into the next episode, cleaners and what stages of life, we are kind of more looking at cleaning up our lives and reducing our toxic burden. But for now, we always ask all of our guests one really important question, because we want you as the guest to share, how do you embrace you first? So what are some of the things we're busy moms, we're here, we're showing up and we're giving back as much as we can, but what do you do for you? What do you do to fill up your teacup, and in terms of taking care of yourself? Let's say one thing that kind of makes you happy that you did today or this week or...
I worked out right before doing this episode, and awesome. That is something that has become increasingly helpful for me. I like to lift weights. So that is something I discovered that I liked to do a few years ago. I was surprised at it. And
amazing. And does that help the detoxification process, working out?
It's something that I'm going to be talking about eventually, but yes, especially with lifting and having muscle, building muscle mass and having those regenerative processes happening in the body, it can help with hormones and overall system health as well.
Awesome. And sweating, right?
Yes.
So our largest organ of elimination is sweating. So get your sweat on.
Yes. And there are certain toxins that are only eliminated by sweat, by the way. So.
Oh, I would like to know more about that. Yeah. Maybe we'll start the next episode that way. Thank you so much. Did you want to do our like, click, subscribe? Mary,
yes. Okay. So guys, hey, here's the deal, guys. Support us. Hope you like this. And please go on to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star and comment, and then take a screenshot and DM us the screenshot, and we will take a person, we'll draw a name at the end of the month. So you'll have a free 30-minute consultation with either Dr. Tanya and I. So can't wait to see you guys in the next round as we continue speaking to Emma. Take care.